1990, American Prodigy challenges British champion in London. What happened in the final moments? No one expected. The White King is exposed in the center of the board, surrounded by black pieces closing in like wolves. The British bishop aims down the long diagonal like a loaded rifle. The American rook, desperately trying to defend, has nowhere left to run. The queen is gone. The knights are gone. It's just a king, a rook, and hope running out. But how did a rising American star find himself here, on the edge of defeat, in front of the entire chess world? The answer lies 52 moves back, when a simple pawn push set everything in motion. The Royal Albert Hall in London is packed. It's October 1990, 3,000 people in absolute silence. The Berlin Wall has fallen. The Soviet Empire is crumbling. And for the first time in decades, the chess world is watching something different. A battle between the old European guard and the new American generation. On one side, Marcus Reed, 38 years old, the British champion, known as the London Wall, because in 15 years as a professional, he has never lost a game on English soil. Methodical, patient, relentless. On the other, Daniel Cross, 24 years old, the American sensation. Nicknamed the Hurricane because he destroys positions like a storm destroys cities, aggressive, unpredictable, hungry. The arbiter starts the clock. Cross touches the pawn on e2 and pushes it to e4. It's Fischer's opening, the opening that tells the world, "I came here to bleed you." The audience recognizes it. A murmur runs through the hall. He's declaring war on the very first move. Reed doesn't blink. His hand moves like a surgeon's. He takes the pawn on c7 and moves it to c5. The Sicilian, the response that says, "You want war? I was born for this." Cross smiles, a small smile, almost imperceptible. Perfect. He leaps his knight from g1 to f3. Reed responds by pushing his pawn from d7 to d6. The American advances his pawn from d2 to d4, offering it as bait. "Take it, if you dare." Reed doesn't hesitate. His pawn on c5 captures on d4. Cross recaptures. Knight from f3 takes on d4. The center is now an open battlefield, an empty space where the war will happen. The American leaps another knight from b1 to c3. The Brit mirrors it. Knight from g8 to f6. Both bring their bishops into the game. The white bishop goes to c4, aiming at f7. The black bishop goes to e7, defending. Both castle kingside, seeking protection behind their rooks. For now, in the first 12 moves, everything seems normal, like two boxers studying each other in the first round. But anyone who understands chess can feel it. The storm is forming. Move 13. Cross does something unexpected. He pushes his pawn from g2 to g4, advancing it aggressively on the flank. The audience whispers. He's attacking the flank before consolidating the center. That's insane. Reed looks at the move, his eyes narrow. The American is playing with fire. Reed responds with precision. Knight from f6 to d7, retreating, protecting. He won't fall for the provocation. But Cross continues. Pawn from g4 to g5, pushing forward like a spear being driven into enemy territory. The American moves his bishop from c1 to e3, developing but also preparing something. Reed responds, knight from b8 to c6, but the pressure is building, like water filling a dam about to burst. Move 20, Cross sacrifices. He pushes his knight from d4 to d5, planting it in the heart of the black position, offering it for free. Reed looks. Does he see the trap? If he captures, lines open. If he doesn't capture, the knight stays there like a thorn embedded in flesh. Reed calculates. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. His clock burns precious time. He captures. Bishop from e7 takes knight on d5. He has to capture. Cross recaptures. Pawn from e4 takes bishop on d5. And suddenly, the e-file is open, like tearing open a wound. The white rook slides from f1 to e1, staring directly at where the black king hides. Reed feels the danger. King from g8 to h8, getting off the firing line. But Cross has already seen 10 moves ahead. He moves his queen from d1 to f3, sliding it diagonally to a square where it can attack multiple points at once, like a sniper finding the perfect position. The Brit tries to counterattack. Rook from f8 to c8, pressuring the c-file. But Cross completely ignores it. He's not interested in defense. The American moves his bishop from e3 to g5, placing it on a square where it pins the knight on d7. If the knight moves, the pawn on f7 falls. If the knight stays, it's paralyzed. Reed sweats for the first time. A drop runs down his temple. He moves his queen from d8 to b6, trying to create threats on the other side of the board, aiming at the pawn on b2. But Cross simply pushes his pawn from a2 to a3, blocking everything, and continues his own assault. Move 30. The position is on fire. Cross doubles his rooks. Rook from a1 to d1, joining the rook on e1. Two heavy weapons on the same file, aimed at the heart of the black defense. Reed tries to reorganize. Knight from d7 to f6, trying to defend. But every move feels wrong. The American advances his knight from c3 to e4, a leap that closes more space, that threatens to jump to d6 or f6. Reed retreats, knight from f6 to e8. Cross advances his pawn from h2 to h4, preparing more attacks on the flank, and then comes the first devastating blow. Cross moves his queen from f3 to h5. It leaps diagonally, landing next to the black king, threatening to enter h7 for checkmate. Reed has to respond immediately. Pawn from g7 to g6, blocking the queen, but this weakens everything around the king. Cross doesn't waste time. Queen from h5 takes pawn on g6, capturing, sacrificing the queen. Reed looks confused. Is he crazy? Pawn from f7 takes queen on g6. But Cross has already calculated everything. Bishop from g5 takes pawn on g6. Now the bishop is on g6, the black king is exposed on h8, and the white rooks are on open files. Reed sees it. Shit, I'm dead. He tries to defend. Rook from c8 to c2. Invading, giving check, trying to create counterplay. White king from g1 to h1. Avoiding the check. Reed continues. Rook from c2 to c1. Another check. King from h1 to g2. Escaping again. But Cross isn't worried. He moves rook from e1 to e7, invading the 7th rank, the rank where all the black pawns live. Like a wolf entering the henhouse, Reed defends. Knight from e8 to f6, trying to block. Cross responds. Rook from d1 to d8. Another rook invading the 8th rank. Now two white rooks are deep in black territory. The Brit is suffocating. Rook from f8 takes rook on d8, forced to trade. Bishop from g6 takes rook on d8. The bishop now dominates the 8th rank. Reed moves his king from h8 to g8, trying to escape. Cross brings rook from e7 to e8. Check. The king has to go back. King from g8 to h7. The hunt has begun. Move 45. Reed's clock shows 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Cross moves bishop from d8 to f6. The bishop now cuts across the board, controlling the center and the diagonals. Reed has no more defense. His knight on f6 is the only piece protecting the king. He moves rook from c1 to c2, trying to create some threat, but it's too late. Cross advances his pawn from h4 to h5, preparing the final blow. Reed pushes his pawn from a7 to a5, desperate, trying to create something on the other side of the board, but Cross ignores it. Rook from e8 to e7. Check. King from h7 to h6. The black king is being pushed off the board. Cross moves knight from e4 to g5. Check. The knight leaps, giving check and attacking the defending knight at the same time. Reed has to move the king. King from h6 to g5. Now the king is completely exposed, in the middle of nowhere. And then Cross does something no one expects. He stops, looks at the board, looks at Reed, and extends his hand, not to resign, to shake his opponent's hand. It's a draw, Cross says. The audience explodes in confusion. What? He's winning? Why is he offering a draw? Reed looks at him, shocked. You're 2 moves from checkmate. Cross smiles. I know, but you played the most incredible defense I've ever seen. You turned a lost position into something that made me sweat. You deserve this draw. Reed is silent. Then, slowly, a tear runs down his face. He shakes the American's hand. Thank you. The audience stands. Ovation. Not because they watched a victory, but because they witnessed something rarer, generosity, respect. a young man who chose honor over glory. Years later, that game would be remembered as the London Generosity. And Reed, in an interview decades later, would say, "That day, Daniel Cross taught me that winning isn't everything. Sometimes the greatest victory is recognizing the greatness in others."